Welcome to the Geek podcast, where it's a new season. Welcome to season 4. I'm Void, and I'm kind of here with my co-host Beige. Not really. Life came up this week, so I'm going to warn everybody straight up front that if you are a new listener looking to jump in at the beginning of a new season, this is not the most representative episode of what we normally do. I would recommend either checking out the two before this, where we cover end of the year stuff. Those are always super fun, or jump ahead one or two to kind of see like what a normal formatted episode looks like. But if you're a regular listener, BJ and I just had life happen, not in a bad way. It's his birthday, and then I had some other stuff happen, and our schedules got out of whack. So he recorded a little bit about what he's been doing, and I'm going to do the same here. And we always like to kick off a new season by talking about like what we did over break, what we did over the holidays. We always buy ourselves like 2, it feels like almost 3 weeks off, and we just have time to like geek out about things. So I asked him, and I said I would do the same, to just kind of talk about the things that like, I mean, we see each other's lists. We know the things that we can talk about and that we kind of want to discuss. I said, pull out all the quick hit things that you want to talk about that aren't really like discussion, because, you know, the other person doesn't have as much to latch on there, and we'll save all of the discussion points for next week, and we'll kind of go over those. So I'll kick us off, and then BJ is going to jump in here in a little bit with his own recording, and I'll get everything put together and in your feed like I always do. I just want to say up front that I listened to a ton of the Giant Bombcast, their Game of the Year coverage. I love the way they do Game of the Year stuff. Like, I love the way we do it too. It's fun. It's perfect for us. But Giant Bomb, if you guys don't listen to them, they do really long podcast episodes and streaming. And I don't really watch the streaming, but the podcast episodes, it's probably like 2 to 3 hours every week. So when they do the end of the year podcast, they do like 5 days of podcasting, and every podcast that they do is like 2 to 6 hours discussing games of the year and what they like about them and the merits of them, and like why one game should go above another in different categories. And they categorize a whole bunch of things and give them different awards, and they pick a top 3 for each of the awards. And I think that process discussion is actually in a lot of ways better than just the lists that you see on so many sites that just say, here are the best ones because we decided. They actually let you hear the whole discussion process. So I want to give a shout out to Giant Bombcast. They've been around forever, so you guys probably know them already if you listen to other video game podcasts, but if not, give it a listen, especially their end of the year stuff. It's really good. For me, quick game updates. I played a bunch of Smash Brothers Ultimate. It's still good. I'm still having fun. Me and my kids are playing it. I think I'm going to main Young Link instead of Toon Link because of some of the changes that they made between the last version and this version. There's subtle changes. If you don't play a bunch of Link characters, you would probably never notice. But I really like the way that like the bombs are handled and some of the things around the smash attack. Like, it just fits my playstyle better. So I think Young Link is kind of where I'm spending most of my time these days. And then I played Spider-Man Silver Lining DLC, which is the third part of the 3-part episode DLC for Spider-Man, the single player stuff. And it was a really good way to wrap up the 3-part series. It tied everything back in from the other 2 DLC episodes. It was much, much better than episode 2, and it was good just like episode 1 was really good. So in general, it made me more excited for Spider-Man 2 whenever that eventually comes out. And the DLC kind of ends on a cliffhanger that I'm sure is like going to directly feed into the next Spider-Man game. So that was cool to see too. It was just kind of like getting a couple extra episodes out of that story, even though the main game was done. So I appreciated that. Even though I don't normally go for single player DLC, this one was totally worth the money. I loved it. I also tried out Battlefield 5. The war stories were decent, but they didn't really have the same impact on me that last year's Battlefield 1 did. So I was a little bit let down. They were okay. They just weren't amazing like they were the other year. Besides that, it was like a really, really buggy game. And I had so much trouble even getting into multiplayer. And when it did, it took forever to load. And then once I got in, it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, this is more Battlefield multiplayer. So I bounced off the multiplayer pretty quick, even though I still enjoyed the single player. There's one game I wanted to mention that I played a bunch over break on my phone because we were traveling, we were out of town for part of it. But this game called Hold Down, which I think I'm a little late to the party. I feel like I've heard people talk about it earlier in the year and I just never gave it a look. So Hold Down is kind of like Brick Breaker from back in the day, but it's like downward facing, and every one of the bricks has these like curved edges. So you can do like bank shots off of almost every one. And it's not complicated, but it's just satisfying, especially with all of the things you can do. It's amazing how much like the curved edges of the bricks give you options that you never had in like traditional Brick Breaker. And there's progression between levels. So every time you go, you unlock more of these, I don't even know what they are, gems or something, that kind of carry over into the metagame, and you can use them to upgrade your abilities and upgrade your stuff, and then you can use that to unlock more levels. So there's this like little meta progression loop that I think gives a lot to the game, but I mean, it's just fun. You're trying to mine down to the core of a planet or an asteroid or whatever by bouncing balls around obstacles, and once you get up a couple levels, you're bouncing like 50 balls. Like there's so many, and it's just, I don't know, it's fun. It's easy, it's simple. I played it a ton over break, but I can easily recommend that one. I think it's a couple bucks on iOS, and I think it's on Android too. For books, I didn't get a whole lot of chance to do reading, which I'm kind of sad about, but I'm hoping to get back into it soon. The one thing that I did get was the Final Fantasy Ultimania Archive Volume 2. So this is the one that shows you all the behind the scenes. Some of it is like stories and info, but it's more about the art and the process and like seeing the world. And I don't know, it was cool. It's an art book for Final Fantasy, and it gives you a little bit extra detail about the game on top of that. So Ultimania Archive Volume 2 covered Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And some of my favorite stuff in there were the storyboards that they had for like scenes and summons and some of the CG cutscenes. They were super cool to be able to see like the early stages of all that and how they all came together. So there's lots of good art, lots of good info about the games. If you're a super huge Final Fantasy nerd like I am, I can recommend those. Those are great. Volume 1 and Volume 2 at this point. And Volume 3 is supposed to come out soon. It's not out yet. The other big thing that I did was, because we were out of town and we were with family, I got a chance to play a lot of board games. And some of them were classics that I know that I've, well, not really classics, but classics for me. Things that are like evergreen that I go back to a lot, that I feel like I've probably talked about these on the show. So I'm not going to belabor the point. So like Love Letter, Pandemic, and, you know, just a bunch of other ones that are staples that I've talked about before. But I got to try new ones, and that was probably the most interesting thing. So I tried Betrayal at the House on the Hill, and that was super fascinating. You are a bunch of people going into this mansion. I don't even know what the story is behind it, but basically you explore this like haunted mansion until things break bad, for lack of a better term, and the haunt starts, and one of you is the traitor. So one of you gets to read a set of secret rules that the traitor gets to know, and then everybody else reads like the accompanying piece out of a different book that gives you like the flavor text about what's going on, but not all the info. So you have two different sets of rules suddenly that are playing against each other, and one player is trying to like destroy the other players. It was so fun. Even like playing it with me, my wife, two other people who had never played the game, and then two people who had played the game. It was a ton of fun. And as soon as I got home, I looked it up, and there's actually a Betrayal Legacy version. And so now we're kind of contemplating getting that because we had so much fun with it. If we can get a regular group together, I think we're going to make that purchase. So I will definitely report back if we do that. I also got to finally break out Arboretum, which is the game that I've had for a long time. I just never like took the 20 minutes to sit down and learn how to play, but I learned how to play it. And then my kids and my wife and I all played a ton of it. And it's simple. It's not that different from standard card deck where you have, you know, numbers and suits, but instead of that, you have numbers and you have tree types, and the trees are different color. And it's all about making a beautiful arboretum with paths through it and trying to be able to hold on to enough in your hand to score those paths at the end of the game. So it's not really a trick-taking game, but there are things in there that reminded me of it, that you have to like think about suits, think about the interaction between what you're doing and what the other players are doing. It was really fun though. So Arboretum was great, and that's like a lightweight game. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. So that'll probably go into my bag every time I travel for a while here. I also got to play Scythe. Scythe was so fascinating because it's one of those games where I don't have anybody who's like as into gaming and like heavy duty games as I am. So I would never buy Scythe, but I jumped at the chance to play it because where I was with family, there were a bunch of people who are that type of gamer, and they have regular groups that get together for it. So Scythe is like a very intense Euro game with also like a tactical game element on top of it. And if you don't know what you're doing, two of us had never played, two people had played. It still took probably like 2 hours, but I could see that game, like if you are not used to playing board games, if you really have to understand things before you can make decisions, that one could drag as you try to learn it. So I'm glad that we had the group that we did. But like I said, it's somewhere between a Euro game, which is really like resource management and having your own board, you know, kind of picking which action you do on a given turn, almost like worker placement type stuff in places, and a tactics game. So you actually have units units that can get into battles and that kind of stuff too. And it's those two living side by side. It's not a ton of like action and attacking, but a lot of it is about positioning and threatening to do things just because of where your board position is. I really liked it, but it's also extremely complicated. This is a game that probably isn't for most people. I can't think of like maybe one or two of my friends that are super huge into gaming. I could recommend it to them if they had the right group, but I would say for like 99.9% of people, I can't recommend Scythe, but I just had to talk about it because like I was excited and I really want to play it again. So that was cool. The other thing for board gaming was that my brother bought me Keyforge for Christmas, and Keyforge is super interesting. It's by the guy who made Magic, and Magic the Gathering. He's made tons of things over the years, but Keyforge has unique decks. So every deck in the game is completely unique, and they're supposed to be balanced against each other, and it's just an algorithmically generated deck that has its very own name and its very own card back, and you're not allowed to mix and match cards. So there's no deck building ever. It's truly about opening up a deck and then making it work for you. So there's no mana in this game, which is one of the things I love. The decks are relatively cheap, which is also awesome. It's like $9 to go grab a deck, so it would be very easy to like spend a night. Like once you know the game, you have friends who are playing the game, just go out and grab a couple decks and like, okay, we're gonna open these blind and play against each other. Like I could see myself doing that. I think my brother and I are gonna end up doing that probably a few other times beyond what we did over the break. There's no deck building, which in my mind is always a positive. That's like my least favorite part of these type of games. And there's some flavor in it. I mean, there's like 7 different houses. Each one has a different play style. Every deck is made up of 3 of those houses randomly assigned. So like you kind of, there's a mix and match between the houses, every single deck that you open. And it's fun to see what are the interactions in my deck? How do I just like make this work? Because that's the challenge, right? So Keyforge was super cool. I want to play more of it, and that's another one that I'll probably play again soon and then report back. So I have some other thoughts about Into the Spider-Verse, Red Dead Redemption 2, which managed to suck me back into play for a while, and then Hades, which I've been playing in early access. But I want to talk about all those with Beej because I think he might have thoughts, and I think he might be mad at me for even spending more time on Red Dead Redemption 2. So we'll see what he says next week when we come back around to those. Besides that, really quick, I won't make it long since this is kind of a mini episode, but you can always support us on Patreon if you go to patreon.com/geek2geekcast. And the network is amazing. Our Geek to Geek podcast network, Geek2 with Joe Hogan and Ray Vargas. I know they released a couple new episodes recently, like Aquaman and like a 2018 year recap. Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea, they also released their like recap of the year and what they've been geeking out about lately. Everybody's kind of getting into their next season and getting things going again, which is awesome. And then we have, and I'm sad Beej isn't here for this announcement because we've been working on this for like a month. So I'm going to keep this very low key and we'll talk about it more next week. But we have 2 streamers that we're adding to the network. So Troidal and Capsule J. Capsule J, which you've probably heard us talk about because he's been our fearless moderator on Reddit for a long time. And both of them are amazing streamers. They're amazing guys. And they kind of dabble in other things too with like blogging and who knows. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're going to start getting pulled onto some podcasts here on the network. So that'll be fun too. But we're expanding the network because we're always looking for more people that want to do that community building. And both of these guys are all about it. They're already a part of our community. So we're super excited to announce that Troidal and Capsule J both are going to be streaming and they're going to be part of the network. So you can find them on Twitch. We'll give you better information next week, I promise. So with all of that said, I'm going to kick it over to Beej because I know that he recorded a part 2, and then I'll be back here right at the end to wrap things up.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Geek to Geek cast. We are Void and Beej, except Void isn't here. I'm just Beej. We're recording separately this week, even though it is the first episode of the year. Because of that, things happened. Life is going on. And so we are going to do short minisodes where you can hear both of us talk about some of the stuff we were doing over the holidays before we get together and really have discussions about a lot of it, more in depth about some of the rest of it. So I hope you guys had a fantastic holiday season. I hope everything was magnificent for you, that you got everything that you wanted, you saw everyone you wanted to see, and you didn't see the people you didn't want to see. So I just hope everything was magnificent, and I hope that 2019 has started out really, really well for you. I also wanted to thank everybody. This is the start of season 4 for the show, so we've made it through 3 whole seasons, and it's because of you guys. So I wanted to thank you for that. Thank you for listening to us and really just being the fantastic, awesome human beings that you really are. So we couldn't do this without you. So really, literally, we could not do this. So there would be no reason to. So thank you so very much. So digging in on some of the stuff that we did over Christmas break that I did specifically was I've been playing a lot of RPGs lately. I've been playing a lot of Persona 5, of Dragon Quest 11, of Pokemon games, of Cosmic Star Heroine, and I've really been trying to dig in on these. And I realized that I'm going to talk a little bit about Persona here because I do want to have a discussion with Void next week or as I progress through them, because I finally got into Persona 5 and it's magnificent. I'm probably 30 hours into it right now, and I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I do. That the social elements of it that I really didn't think were going to be my thing are honestly the part of the game that I find myself the most engrossed in, where I love the combat, I love the dungeon running, the things that you have to do in these palaces, they're dungeons that you cannot beat most of the time in a single sitting, that they are so large, and the way that they're laid out and put together is that they're so tied into the narrative that you have to, the game is split into days, so you have to leave and sleep and then come back on a different day because things are happening in the real world. So it is just great that way. I didn't think I was going to like that very much, but the more I've played it, the more it really just has a great rhythm to it. The graphics are beautiful, and what Void said earlier, like 2 years ago, I guess, the game is as stylized as anything else, and it's just so stylish. Like everything just pops and it's wonderful. I care about these characters, and there's even a kind of, it's kind of a Pokemon collection kind of game with the demons, where you're fusing demons and with the personas, and you really, you negotiate with them to bring them to your side and work with you, and then weirdly enough you kill them, and when you kill 2 of them at least, and sometimes more, they fuse together into a new, more powerful one. It's a really good system, and it's really fun to collect all of them. So I can certainly see, and if I do a new game plus at any point, of trying to get every one of the personas. It's great, and this has made me want to go back through all of the other Persona games and really do a playthrough like Void did of Final Fantasy and of Zelda, to play from the beginning of the series to the end. So I have Persona 4 already on Vita, the Persona 4 Golden, and I've played it some. I'm a few hours into it, and it's really, really good. I even went back and found my old save game. I was able to find it, backed it up on my PS3, and so I've been playing it a little bit, but not a lot, because I've really invested in Persona 5. So I'm really wanting to go back from 1 all the way through, including Persona Q on the 3DS. So we'll see how that goes, because I'm playing Persona 1 Shin Megami Tensei on the Vita, the PS Vita. There is a release that they did for it that makes a better translation and adaptation of the Japanese version than the Revelations Persona was in the mid-90s for the PlayStation 1. So I'm really excited to play through those, but that first one is a little rough around the edges, and by a little, I mean a lot. So I'm hoping that as I go through it, I'll either really fall into the game, or that may be one where, kind of like Final Fantasy 3, where it's like, I know what this game is, I see all of it, and now I need to move on. Because I hear even better things about Persona 2, and then 3 is where they get the series going now. So that's been fun. I have been playing Dragon Quest 11, and it's great. It is a magnificent game. If you are interested in JRPGs at all, Dragon Quest 11 is a wonderful place to start. We've talked about it a bit on the podcast last season, and I just wanted to say that my friend Austin finally finished it up. I got it for him for his birthday in early November, and just as they came up here for Christmas, maybe a few days before Christmas, I think, or maybe it was a couple days after, I don't remember, but he platinumed it. So he got everything through Dragon Quest 11 that he said it is right up there with Final Fantasy 9 as his favorite RPG of all time. And that's a lot. Like when he says that it's near Final Fantasy 9, that is some of the highest praise I've ever heard for a game. So that is just, I just wanted to let you guys know that he's going back through and now playing through all the Dragon Quest games from 1 all the way through, and I think he beat Dragon Quest 1 in like 3 days on iOS. So like the man is crazy about Dragon Quest, and I think that's a rousing endorsement for you guys to go play it if you haven't or have been hesitant on it for some reason. Very traditional JRPG, but just a magnificent one itself. Also, I've played Starlink Battle for Atlas. Your lovely neighborhood Void, not friendly neighborhood, your lovely neighborhood Void, sent me Starlink Battle for Atlas for Christmas, and it is great. The R-Wing that you play with, that you attach it to your controller, the 2 Joy-Cons go down in the side of the mount for it, so you're controlling it with this ship in your hands. And even though there aren't motion controls that I've found so far, if there are, they're turned off, and I can't, I haven't been able to play with them yet, or I can't find them. But it makes me go and hold this thing that is a good 6.5 to 8 inches, probably 8 inches with wingspan, and I'm flying around in this open world game, shooting monsters and circling around, and I'm actually moving it with my controller. Like, it's one of those things where I feel like I'm like a 7-year-old doing this, where it's moving my controller like you do with Mario Kart, trying to do it, but I feel like that because I actually have a spaceship on there. I'm like pew 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 pew, and I've done that a lot to with it to my wife, so it's a lot of fun. I really do like that, and it does feel like a Star Fox game because I have it on the Switch. He got it for me for Switch, and if you'll remember, a few weeks ago we did an episode where we were talking about this as where I said it sounded like it would be. I saw the cover of it and thought, man, that's a new Star Fox game, and it wasn't. And he said, the Nintendo Switch one basically is. It's got Fox and the R-Wing and all this. You can go listen to the episode if you want. But that said, it is a Star Fox game. If you've ever wondered what an open world Star Fox game would be and play like, Starlink Battle for Atlas is it. It is super fun. Really, really good exploration in it. I fly around a lot. And, in terms of TV, things like that, the Nailed It Holiday Special, the Nailed It Holiday Season, because it's a whole season of TV, is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, y'all. It is great. It is, gut-busting funny, where I was lying on the couch and hurting because I was laughing so hard. It was great and hilarious, and it made me realize I want to be on Nailed It, that I could absolutely be on Nailed It Holiday or Nailed It anytime. Like, I think I would get along with the hosts. I think that Nicole and I would be like besties, that it would just be great. That if you guys have watched the regular seasons of Nailed It and you liked that kind of parody cooking show, Nailed It Holiday, they leaned in. Nailed It Holiday is what is the original seasons, is what they did in the first 2 seasons, only it's straight up better. That if you have thought about doing it, it doesn't matter that it's holiday. It really doesn't. Just watch it at any point during the year, and I think that you will find yourself just cackling at this. So I did a lot of other stuff over the break. I just want to very briefly mention we've been watching the Harry Potter movies again, and they're great. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more. I think whenever I finish recording this, I may go in there and watch Order of the Phoenix because we've been working our way through them, and they're just as wonderful as I remember them being. And Prisoner of Azkaban is a technical masterpiece. It's so good. Alfonso Cuarón is just a magnificent director. And I saw Into the Spider-Verse, and I'm going to wait to really talk about that with Void. But just so if you hear this, and I'm sure you've heard it from everyone else, but if you have an opportunity to see this in the theater, you absolutely should. It is a visual just feast of colors and the way that they do all the animations. I know I talked a little bit about it last time. I think on the last episode that we did, we recorded so many of them last month, but I want to point out, y'all need to go see that again. And then the last thing that I've really been doing most of all, and I'll talk a lot about this next time, is I got really into Pokemon. I was talking with my nephew, and he got into it a few weeks ago now, and I've talked a little bit on it at the end of last season, and so I'm playing through Ultra Sun. I got Let's Go for Christmas. Christmas, and oh my God, it's great. I finished my Pokédex in like 5 days in Let's Go, and so I'm kind of all in. I'm playing Ultra Sun right now. I think my buddy's getting me Alpha Sapphire for my birthday, which is tomorrow. Yay! I'm recording this, and my 36th birthday is tomorrow. So yay! You guys are listening to this one day after my birthday, but you can still send birthday wishes to Professor Beej on Twitter. That's my handle. I'm not referring to myself in the third person, though I'm kind of referring to myself in the third person, but you know what's going on. And so, but I'm really excited. And the only thing that I have on this one that I'm really sad about is that because I started on my new 3DS that I got earlier this year, I let my nephew play my old Omega Ruby game that we had on my wife's 2DS, and we had a digital copy of it, and that means that I lost all of the Pokemon there. I couldn't put them in the bank, and so I actually realized today when I was looking around, I lost some mythical Pokemon I can't get back, like a Volcanion and I think a Jirachi or something like that, and a couple of others, so it made me kind of sad, but I'll get them. I'll find someone who will trade them to me. That's kind of what I'm working on. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm kind of in that collection completist mood. If you couldn't tell between how much I'm in on Persona because of the Persona collection infusing and the Pokemon trying to actually fill out a Pokedex. When Austin told me that about 3 years ago when his daughter was born that he filled out an 800 Pokemon living Pokedex while he was taking care of her. It kind of with Omega Alpha Sapphire when we were playing those together, that made me really want one myself, and so I was already halfway through Ultra Sun at that point. So now as I start Alpha Sapphire, I'm going to be working on this stuff, so that is going to be something I don't know what else to say other than it's going to be something, and I want to talk about it with Void next time when we get together, because I know he plays all of these so they come out, and so I'm kind of playing catch up right now, except for Let's Go, which I know he's talked about some on the podcast last season. So, well, you guys, that's me. That's what I've been kind of up to. I've been playing, like I said, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon, so I'm going to be talking about it a lot more at length next time we do this, but just everything's good. The holidays were hard, had a really tough year last year, but it's over. We've made it through that. I made it through that, and a lot of that was because of the support that you guys had. A lot of you guys reached out over the course of the year, over the course of just the holidays, checking in on me. And that means the world to me. I want to let you guys know that. I want you to hear that from me, that those of you who are like, hey, how you doing, dude, meant so much to me, just to know that you guys were thinking about me. So thank you for that. I will see you guys next week. Well, I guess I will talk to you guys soon. You will not see me, or I won't see you, but you will hear me, and then I will hear back from you, hopefully. You know how the podcast thing works. I will be back next week, and we will have our normal discussion. And like I said, thanks for tuning in, and I don't know what order this is going to be airing in, but here's Void.
There you go. That's what Beej has been up to. That'll about do it for this week. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address, as always, is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have longer discussion threads on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast. And we have Slack, we have Discord. You can go to discord.geek2geekcast.com, slack.geek2geekcast.com. You can get an invite, hang out with us, and the podcast network. We always love to give the shout out. If you want, you can head over to geek2geekcast.com and see all the shows on the network. I blog at agreenmushroom.com. You can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's. You can find BJ on Twitter at Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's in it. And he blogs at geekfitness.net. I've been Void, and Beej has been here for part of the episode. I haven't gotten to talk to him yet, but next week. But that's it. We had your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea, and we are the hosts of Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. We are two best friends who love pop culture and talking about pretty much whatever we want. Katie!
Yes?
Stop thinking about Zac Efron and tell our future listeners what some of our latest episodes have been about.
Well, we've talked about Zac Efron.
No, get it together, Katie.
Fine. We've talked about fan fiction, classical literature adaptations, favorite TV couples, and so much more. So grab your cup of tea or whatever your drink of choice is and download our podcast today.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.